All right, I want to take this opportunity to welcome members of council, administration to our meeting, as well as those who are streaming from the comforts of your home. Welcome to our public meeting today. So I will call the meeting to order, and all members of council are present. And we had no closed meeting schedule prior to our meeting this evening, so there is nothing to report out there. And we are going to go right to disclosures of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this evening. There's none identified, and we'll have that recorded and reflected in the minutes. Members of council, we do have the regular council meeting minutes of February 9th, 2021, and also our public council meeting of January 26, 2021, the draft official plan. So if I could have a motion on those minutes, Deputy Mayor Becchetti and Councillor Tonio. On those minutes, any errors or omission is presented. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. Just a very minor thing. Just the omission of a move for the adjournment in the regular council meeting. I didn't notice anyone, but I believe Councillor Tonio will move that. Thank you.
Okay, will do. As amended, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Supplementary agenda adoption. We have two items to bring forward under supplementary. If I could have a motion there, Councillor Houston, Councillor Altenhoff. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Okay. For some reason, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, delegations, we have none. Communications, members of council, we have items 8 through to including K. Could I have a motion to receive said communication? Councillor Tonio and Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Members of council, is there any communication pieces that you would like to bring forward? All right. And with that, I will move on to committee minutes. We have the Police Services Board, February 11, 2021 minutes. That the Police Services Board, as we're duplicating, delivered to the members, be adopted as presented. Deputy Mayor Becchetti, Councillor Altenhoff. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Yes, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I just wanted to articulate the point, reading with interest on the topic of the 911 misdials, that the actions from Tecumseh, have the potential for resulting in some cost savings and hopefully better value to the residents and perhaps through our municipality and outside. So I just wanted to comment and say very good work to everyone on this initiative. I think it's certainly efforts very well spent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Altenhoff. No doubt this is something that's been reported throughout now, led by Tecumseh, but throughout the OPP municipal policing sector, and including their own detachments, has been an 80% reduction. And so that's at least now it's proactive policing. They can deal with that instead of misdial. So it's certainly a good deed. So no further questions or comments. All in favor? Was Fendi, that's carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to reports. We have the first report from our corporate services and our clerk. It is the corporate services 2021-03. That's a parking lot lease agreement renewal at 12150 Tecumseh Road, Jacoball Enterprise Incorporated. Wish of council. This is the one where we had quite a deliberation last week. Yes, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Brichetti.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. It provides a lot more detail, so I want to thank administration for their time with that. I'm just a little bit perplexed why we have to have such a large increase, especially during a pandemic year. Was there any discussion with the property owner regarding extending the lease with the same terms for, say, an extended for 1 year or whatnot? Or was this something where this is a proposal coming from the property owner to the town as a take it or leave it type of offer?
Okay, to our CAO, Ms. Evans.
If I could ask through you, Mr. Mayor, if maybe Laura and Tom could do a little bit of a presentation on the matter, because there has been quite a bit of deliberation on this since council last directed us, and that might be the quickest way to answer Deputy Mayor Brichetti's question.
Yeah, thank you very much. To our clerk, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if I can just speak to both Report 2021-03 as well as CS 2021-05, which is a supplementary report. So as Council knows, we presented a report to you with regards to the discussions with the property owner to renew the lease for 26 parking spots along Tecumseh Road. And administration, the report was deferred by Council at the meeting, and administration was asked to go back and provide a quantitative value and impact report, canvass the local businesses through the Tecumseh Business Improvement Area Coordinator to obtain input on their use of the lot and comments on the existing parking supply, as well as to discuss with the owner the prospect of a more modest increase in the lease payment, as well as a shorter term lease, and just to give us some time to see the progress with the Tecumseh Road with the community improvement plan, in addition to a 6-month notice of cancellation clause. So the BIA did canvass the local businesses in the area, 32 in total. Of those 32 businesses, 6 have either closed or moved. 2 of the businesses did not respond. We had 6 businesses that indicated that they use the lot all day and all week, as well as their customers. I think it should be important to note, however, at least 2 of those businesses are on the subject property and are tenants, are lessees of the cable. 3 businesses do not use the lot, nor their customers, and 6 businesses use the lot. However, it is used by their customers, and another 9 indicated that their customers may use the lot as customer overflow parking. So we did meet with Mr. Cable and his wife on February 19th to discuss a change in terms for the lease and to what he had proposed. While he was amenable to a shorter term and the 6-month notification clause of cancellation, he was not amenable to reducing the lease payment. In fact, he came up with a new manner of calculating the lease, one being a reduction, if you will, or a payment in lieu of taxes based on the tax assessment rate for the current then year. And then he also provided a formula for a yearly rental fee, that being $1 per parking space for 365 days of the year for each parking spot, less his estimated $2,500 for snow removal and the, if you will, the tax rebate of around $1,900. So he's looking for a lease payment, also looking for was willing to accept a 50-50 cost sharing on the future maintenance. So in total, Mr. Cable is looking for a lease payment with the tax rebate in total of $6,989.97 with the 50% maintenance sharing. We did consult informally with a land appraiser as well as a local realtor to get a better idea of what the value of such a lease would be. And that was estimated in the range of $2,000 to $3,000, particularly in light of the town's significant investment in capital over the past 20 years, almost $25,000. And we did make Mr. Cable aware of that estimate that we had obtained. And we did suggest a more modest increase of $3,500 in total as the lease payment. However, that was declined by Mr. Cable.
Let's go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And that's, I think, when I read that report, it's very, very clear that, in terms of being financial stewards of this municipality, as a council, we look at those reports and those appraisals and those professional opinions. And when the appraiser says the value is $2,000 to $3,000 and the town offers $3,500, not only on the top end, but adds even more, to me, that's being more than fair in terms of negotiating a lease agreement. And the fact that it was turned down, I don't believe we need those parking spots. Again, I've driven around there. We have, I don't know if Mr. Firth can put up the map. We do have about 24 spots there in the BIA parking lot. That's just maybe 30 feet away. We want to promote physical, healthy, active living in terms of people moving and walking. So in terms of the future, when we revitalize this Main Street, I can see, these pockets of parking lots, and there's other opportunities, down Shawnee where the job shop I know is renovating Torino's. We have ample opportunity to look at similar lease agreements with other property owners. And so looking at this, we have more than enough spots that are needed today. And, the fact that we made a reasonable offer, I'm not prepared to fund anyone's as a revenue producing to a property owner where we have to look after these tax dollars. And I know it's not a lot in the overall picture, but in principle, to me, I don't feel that the town should be offering anymore. And it's, in fact, I don't support renewing this lease and letting things go the way they are. And we can revisit this as the need arises for the town.
Thank you. Councilor Tonio.
Thank you. I'm kind of in agreement with Deputy Mayor Becchetti on this topic. I did my own canvassing and I went and talked to some businesses today and got the same results as the BIA and the administration has done. There are what I was basically informed, or what we came up with, is there's other options. We don't have to stick with just this one option from this gentleman on this lease. 100 feet away to the west is our public lot. There's 26, I think 25 spots I counted there. As I drive by daily, I've been checking for the last few weeks. It's maybe used 1/3 of the spots are used during the day. So there's availability right there too. And the excess funds, or extra funds that we might save here, we could put into that parking lot, keeping the dollars, apples and apples here, and fix up that lot maybe a little bit, adds more lighting and little sept stuff there and might need to make it a little safer. So in the end, I don't know if it's feasible for us to spend this increase for this lot. I think we might just be throwing some money into the pavement for no reason at all. I don't think it'll drastically affect our businesses in that area or the customers that patronize that area. So I don't support the increase. Certainly we can continue the lease as is, but the increase, I don't know if I support. So thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think Councilor Tonio, our clerk, basically did ask that in terms of this the reduction, and they weren't interested. So in the report,
Correct.
So we're already there in terms of the increase. I believe Councilor Dowie and Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Worship. I'm very much of the same mind. I certainly respect what we heard a couple weeks ago about that we do not want to lose opportunity with the CIP. But having said that, it looks like the owner has other plans for the property, and we are looking at at the relative value, and we do have very clear options that are in the proximity. One is owned by the municipality and is already a municipal lot 2 doors down, as well as the Legion lot. And to the point brought up by the clerk, some of the businesses that are actually all other tenants of the property are using the parking lot and using our spaces. So with all that being said, it looked like the two that were reliant were the immediately adjacent buildings, which do have some degree of parking on their property as well. It's not as convenient necessarily, but it does exist. And so I feel comfortable in really severing this tie, as we do have other options in front of us to accommodate the needs of local business.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dowie. Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, I'll agree with, all of the comments that have been made. It's unfortunate we don't have I guess a partner, right, to work with, in the core. But my only concern would in severing this, really not giving any notice, to either the business owners whose customers or employees use the lot. So that would really be my only concern in severing this. But in reviewing the map, we do have the lots which are 100 feet away. So it's unfortunate that it's working out the way that it is. But I completely support not renewing it. So, but and at the end of the day, the increase, even though it is around $3,000 over what it is, it's much more than what the valuation, for the property is. So, this guy's a businessman. He'll do what's in his best interest, and we have to do what's in best interest for us and all taxpayers. So, it's too bad it didn't work out, but we'll move forward. The only thing I'd like to mention, and I know it's been discussed a little bit in the past, is parking on Tecumseh Road. So I don't know in not renewing this if we might be able to move ahead and test parking on Tecumseh Road and replacing some of the spots from this lot, and really moving it down to 2 lanes. So might be something that we can move forward with now that we don't have these spots as well. But maybe like to hear from Public Works on that being a possibility.
Mr. Bartnick.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. To Councillor Houston, yes, absolutely. I think part of the streetscape plan was to narrow the road down to 2 lanes and have on-street parking. I know there has been some discussion in the past about introducing kind of an interim measure before some of the landscaping and streetscaping works can take place, about having some on-street parking there. It's definitely something that we can keep an eye on and monitor to see if how well utilized the town's parking lot is adjacent to BIA. And if need be, we could bring a report back to council at that time to make recommendations on expanding the on-street parking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and any further questions or comments at this stage? If not, then I need a motion then that I guess I'm going to need the clerk to maybe formulate, but just that the contract be with Mr. Cable cease at being there's no contract right now, so it would be right now.
If I may, Your Worship, can we have a motion to could we have a motion to receive both CS 2021-03 and 05, and that we'd be able, given direction, to advise Mr. Cable that we decline his proposal for the lease renewal?
Thank you. Councilor Jobin, move and support by Councilor Tonio. On the two reports received, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And the final is, do you need any more at this stage here? No, we're good. Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. All right, next report is prepared as well as the Monroe Island Servicing Agreement. And that is to be received. And if, I don't know who's going to bring this report forward, I think Madam Clerk, it would be the clerk's office.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we have presented to Council this evening with CS 2021-04. This is in follow-up to a report that we brought to Council in December of 2019 with regards to the servicing of Monroe Island, municipally known as 454 Brighton Road in the town of Lakeshore. The property, however, is somewhat of an island and does not have access other than potentially from a small parcel that the owner of the island also owns within the town of Tecumseh. So the town of Tecumseh was approached to work with the property owner and seeing if servicing would be feasible through the town. At the meeting, Council authorized, at the December meeting, I should say, administration was authorized to negotiate terms of an agreement between Lakeshore and the property owner to provide for servicing of 454 through the town's land, the lands located in the town at 440 Brighton Road, and to present the negotiated servicing agreement to Council for consideration and adoption by bylaw. And essentially, this is what the report is regarding this evening, is the negotiated agreement. Additionally, Council had provided us with or had authorized, subject to a request from Lakeshore, to cooperate on undertaking in a boundary adjustment to bring 454 Brighton Road to within the town of Tecumseh's boundary limits. So before you this evening, we do have the draft servicing agreement. And as indicated in our earlier report, the services the town would provide would include all municipal servicing from sanitary sewage, water, access from 440 Brighton, fire, police, garbage pickup, and other deemed municipal services. The property owner would be required for all applicable building permits and associated fees, as well as planning approvals from the town of Lakeshore. And Lakeshore agreed to work cooperatively with the town on a restructuring proposal submission to the province. So the town would assume jurisdiction over the island upon approval of the provincial order, and the servicing agreement would be registered in the land titles office in the meantime until such time as the order was obtained from the province. With regards to property taxes in the interim and the development charges, the agreement also speaks to Lakeshore collecting such charges and remitting those upon collection over to the town. So we have on the agenda this evening the agreement along with a bylaw to authorize signing of the agreement if Council is agreeable. We'd also note that with regards to bringing a proposal to the province, that administration would be working with Lakeshore administration to draft the necessary proposal and bring a further report back to Council. We should also note that prior to any proposal being presented to the province, that both councils would need to hold a public meeting on the matter, as well as obtain approvals from the county level. But all of that would be the subject of a further report. So with that, Your Worship, we're looking for Council's consideration to approving the servicing agreement with the town of Lakeshore and the property owner. I guess I should also note that the property owner is also agreeable to this signing of the agreement and in fact has done so. He's also quite anxious to get this agreement in place, as he would like to start getting his works in the ground, if you will, prior to the Endangered Species Act time period commencing on March 15th.
All right, thank you. Yes, Ms. Evans.
Just also wanted to add, thank you, Laura, that the town of Lakeshore, or sorry, the municipality of Lakeshore considered the matter on February 16th and gave their approval to the draft agreement.
Okay. All right, any questions or comment on the report? Yes, Deputy Mayor Becchetti and Councilor Tonio.
Yeah, just a question. Obviously, everyone's signed off, so obviously our town administration is comfortable with this agreement. The question I have is in terms of servicing fire and police, the access to Monroe Island, how would that take place? If there's a phone call, say, I don't know, police matter or fire,
Sure.
what's the accessibility to the island?
It'll be via Brighton Road, and perhaps Mr. Bartnick can comment on that more completely.
Through you, your worship, to Deputy Mayor Becchetti, there will be an access bridge built from the island to Brighton Road. If Sean can zoom in there a little bit, there is a parcel, I believe it's 440, that is also owned by the property owner of Monroe Island. So he does have plans to build an access bridge to Brighton Road, and that is the same parcel that the water service and the sanitary service would also be brought through.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Tonio.
You disregard Councilor Becchetti stole my idea and my question. So thank you. It's been answered and I appreciate that. Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, maybe to Mr. Bartnick, the only question I had, and it just dawned on me here, is that has anyone had, because obviously a lot of the work is going to occur while it's still in the municipality of Lakeshore's hands, and then eventually things will transfer over. Utilities, meaning hydro. Municipality of Lakeshore, it's Hydro One, and town of Tecumseh, it's Essex Power. And it would take an agreement, I would believe, that once it becomes to us, I would like to get that maybe settled before, because that could become a bit of an issue down the road.
Through your worship, yes, I agree. I don't have the answer off the top of my head whether that was covered off in the agreement. I do believe, we went through a lot of the servicing. I don't know if we went through the actual utilities, whether it was hydro or gas or Bell, but though I think that's an issue we can perhaps try to reach out to Lakeshore and the owner and try to clear up on the intent.
The only thing that I can think of is because of I guess the argument that I would use is the utilities will be coming from 450, across in that area. And then if that's the case, then there's no issue. Then it's Essex Power, in terms of bringing power to the island. But just so that we, I know it's one property, and I think it's one, these service territories are, they're real sticklers on what they can and cannot do in each other's area. So it could be, I think this one here could be fixed up easily. I think it's more of a simple housekeeping piece, but it's something that we maybe should give John Abdulis maybe a call. And you can, contact their counterparts at certainly Hydro One. But I really believe, because of all the services are coming from our area and eventually it's coming to us, it'd be nice to be ahead of it, not behind it.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, if I could, we can bring that to the owner's attention. In the agreement, all of the permits and required agreements for the proposed home are his responsibility to obtain, but we can ensure that he's looked into that matter.
Well, that's good, because if it's Essex Power, it's going to save him money than Hydro One. But I just again, I just want to be ahead of it, and before somebody comes in and says, "Whoa, wait a minute," you got to deal with this first. Okay. No further questions or comments. Go ahead, Councilor Jobin.
Certainly, through you, just a comment. This is a grand undertaking for these owners. So, you know, 2 municipalities have put a lot of time and works into this. So I really do hope to see it to be a successful venture for them, and that the weather does work in their favor going forward, because this has been a lengthy process. So, and again, thanks to both municipalities for collaborating and seeing this come to fruition for them.
Yes, I mean, this is you know, thank you to both yourself, Councilor Jobin and Councilor Houston as our reps on that municipal cooperation and certainly, but I think a lot of thought has gone into this and I think, you know, the real benefactors of finding the landowner, you know, be able to do what he's been wanting to do for a long time. So this is all good. All right, so I need a motion to adopt the report as presented. Councilor Altenhoff and Deputy Mayor Becchetti. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, we'll move on now to Planning and Building Services. Planning and Building Services 2021-08, Town of Tecumseh draft new official plan. February 2021 revision, the Schedule E2. If I could have a motion to receive the report, but I think maybe Mr. Hillman, if you want to just kind of enlighten us a little bit, and then leading us to, I just don't want to steal your thunder. And you know, when you got a document as thick as the one you've been in charge and preparing over the years, I want to give it its full due and acknowledgement.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in fact, this report is a little bit of a housekeeping, so to speak. So we'll be diving into that OP document under the next report. But having said that, what this report is attempting to do is to bring to council's attention a little bit of a shortcoming when we were putting the document together. And once it was put in front of council through the agenda, credit to Councillor Dowie, he asked the question to us, why was a certain segment of the active transportation system missing on a map? And so this report is intended to bring it forward to council formally. And if we actually, for sake of ease, I think if Sean were to go to attachment number 1 to the report, you'll see a little area that's outlined, and it's really along the Little River Boulevard corridor, and that is intended to be a Tecumseh on-road shared facility. So this is projecting out our active transportation network that will be implemented over the next number of years. And of course, this plan is looking out 25 years. And you can see that there's a slight gap here. And ideally, your active transportation networks are complete and continuous for the user, because quite often there are people who are walking, biking, and then they're signed accordingly. And so we really want to maintain some connectivity. So we have looked at this issue and recognized that the recommended solution, if we were to go to the next image, which is the full scale map. If we could just stop maybe there, Sean, thank you. You'll see that the proposal is for the Tecumseh on-road shared to extend, if we were going easterly from Little River down St. Pierre across Wood Street. Both roads can accommodate an on-road shared facility. And ideally, and it's lucky, both roads actually have sidewalks on both sides. Then when they get to L'Esperance, we have another facility type already identified, and one would travel north and then get back onto Little River. And of course, the nice thing is these networks extend into the city. So there's a nice continuous network that is proposed. And so what we're recommending to council is that through this report, that Schedule E-2, which is the active transportation schedule out of the official plan, that it be replaced by the schedule that is on the screen right now and attached to this report. And that if council does adopt the official plan tonight, that revised schedule would be put into the document as Schedule E-2 and showing this, and showing that proposed connection point along Wood Street. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, I'm just gonna turn it over to members of council. If there are any questions or comments they want to make there. Yes, go ahead, Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks to the administration for looking into this issue and for bringing forward just a correction or an identification of how the connectivity would be restored. I guess thinking further about it, we do have active transportation on both Dillon and the Little River, and just curious as to whether any thought had gone into bringing forward north on St. Peter to Dillon as an alternative. I mean, wood provides that connectivity, but I guess I'm thinking of how St. Peter is laid out. It's a pretty wide road. Thinking about it, and whether that might be, just if it had been looked at in the past for this type of purpose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can advise that our principal look was at the Little River connection. So looking at it from the perspective of where it went into the city, where it came out of the city and into the town and over to Manning Road. And when we spoke to the consultants who had worked on the Transportation Master Plan, Dillon Consulting, we had really focused on how do we make the most logical direct connection to the Little River system. And not to say that connection couldn't be made, but I think we hadn't fully turned our mind to it and felt that this was the preferred design that would, create the connectivity that was being sought primarily on an east-west movement of people.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comment on the E2 amended piece to the plan? If not, then if I could have a motion that Tecumseh official plan February 2021 revision to schedule E2 active transportation network of the new town of Tecumseh official plan prior to formal adoption be received, and that prior to considering the adoption of the new official plan in accordance with our PBS 2021-04 Schedule E2 active transportation network of the new official plan be revised in accordance with the Planning and Building Services 2021-08. And that further revised Schedule E2 active transportation network be included into the council adopted version of the new official plan for submission for county approval. Moved by Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Houston, support. Any further questions or comments at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship, and I just want to say thank you to the exhaustive work by administration. This has been a very long time in development. I think it predates actually my election to town council almost 7 years ago. And so I know a lot of work goes into the official plan review. We were treated to a number of discussion papers in the lead up to today, which spoke very well to the vision of the community going forward and reflecting the provincial direction, which is really going to lead to change in our community. Certainly some of the challenges that we've already run into with respect to intensification and adapting to an existing neighborhood, that is part and parcel of our future, not from necessarily from our introduction, although we do certainly want to bring in additional housing options for residents, but the intensification is the provincial direction. And so with that, we had a very comprehensive look at this issue and many issues. The staff spent hours and hours and hours. I mean, I certainly appreciate all the work that had gone into this, and very thankful that it's actually being brought forward tonight. This marks for the very first time consolidated town of Tecumseh official plan. We have been going by the previous municipalities for over 20 years. So this really provides a uniting document, one that speaks to that we are one community. And that's something I'm very grateful for, that we have this in hand. And because my home is not just my block, but my home is Tecumseh from end to end. And so I'm very delighted to see this here today. And so I just wanted to leave it there. Say thank you for such great work on this.
All right, I think we're just ahead of ourselves a little bit, but this is on the E2. And so it's been moved and supported, and all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried unanimous. Next on the agenda is our PBS, again, 2021-04 Town of Tecumseh Draft Official Plan, February 21 draft for council adoption. Mr. Hillman and, Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going.
My eye.
No, I'm going to get us started with respect to this report tonight, and Brian will join in later. A lot of what I'm going to say was just so eloquently captured by Andrew or Councillor Dowie. But I've got a few things to add to that. We're here tonight, of course, to recommend to council to adopt the new Tecumseh official plan. As was noted, it's a very important policy document that will guide decision-making on the development of the community over the next 25 years. And there was a very comprehensive process undertaken in the preparation of this document. And that's been detailed in previous reports to council and to the public. But I'd just like to provide a quick recap of what took place over the last year to get us to tonight. In February of 2020, there was a PowerPoint presentation delivered to council that provided an overview of the key policy directions that resulted from those 11 discussion papers that you just heard about, as well as resulting from a number of public meetings and stakeholder engagement sessions that we held over the years. Then COVID hit, and we needed to figure out how to hold virtual public meetings and how to engage the public virtually. And that took some time. And once we did, we provided a draft official plan to council in September of 2020 and made the document available for public review. And the most significant component of that review process were 2 public information centers that were held on Zoom, at which we received some very useful input, much of which has been incorporated into the document before council tonight. Throughout this process, there's been numerous consultations with various agencies, including IRCA, but probably most importantly, the County of Essex planner, who has been delegated approval authority under the Planning Act. This all led to a formal public meeting under the Planning Act that was held last month, where we summarized the comments received through that consultation process and provided recommendations. Now, those recommendations have been incorporated into the document before you tonight. The associated report on the agenda includes a table that identifies the section that has been revised and a description of the revision. And there are 17 of them. They're fairly clear and straightforward, but we're here tonight to answer any questions that council may still have regarding the draft official plan. After that formal public meeting, additional considerations surfaced, and Brian will speak to those now.
Thank you.
Hillman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thanks, Chad. So I'm just on page 5 of the actual planning report, and you'll see that, as Chad indicated, we had just a couple of issues that came up after the public meeting that needed to be taken care of and addressed. So I'll start with an email that was provided, and you'll recall Ms. Judy Robson did attend the public meeting that we held, and also she was very engaged through the Public Information Center. So, and we appreciated her involvement through those processes. Subsequent to the public meeting, she did comment on a couple of issues, and she related to the issues how we commented on the food items that were raised. So she has 3 that were provided in her email, and they're just noted on the screen as food 1. So the first one dealt with references through the the draft new official plan where we use the word former sometimes in reference to former municipalities and the new town of Tecumseh as we understand it to be today. And what we acknowledge in our covering report is that we did make a few refinements to the document under the sections identified, 1.3 and 1.52. These are sort of descriptive sections of the OP. And we really just try and be as clear as possible when we were speaking of the former municipalities that had existed prior to amalgamation. So we did just some minor cleaning up there. So there were some minor revisions. Under food item number 5, which is the second point, there were questions raised around the descriptions of Old Castle Hamlet settlement area and the profile description. So in the official plan under the earlier sections, 1.52, there's a municipal profile. And the intent is just to provide to the reader a sense of the makeup of the community, the distribution of different elements of the community, and so on. And what we had done was, under the area that's describing the various settlement areas, described Old Castle Hamlet. And I'll just read from this as being a predominance of employment uses, commercial, service-related uses, number of residential clusters, recreational areas, trails, and institutional uses. Very high order description. But when you look at the balance of the official plan and how we describe other settlement areas in the town in general, it is very high level, and that is the intent, just to give the reader a sense of what are the main compositions of these areas. So we didn't really see value in doing any changes in that instance. And in addition, what had been raised was some concern around the certainty of doing a further study in Old Castle on the remaining future development lands, which have been the subject of much discussion. And we just reiterated in the planning report that there are 2 sections that clearly establish the commitment of council by way of policy in the official plan that a special study will be undertaken for these lands. The lands will not develop until the study is completed, and a future amendment is put to the official plan to incorporate the findings of that study, all of which will go through a complex community engagement process and will have the involvement of council as well. So there were no revisions proposed in the final document that is in front of council as a result of that issue being raised. And the third item that was raised in the letter is with respect to some of the zoning that currently exists. Now, to be clear, the official plan is the policy document below which it has a number of ways it is implemented. One is through zoning, and a new zoning bylaw townwide will come forward in the future with the adoption and approval of the official plan. However, there were some questions around some of the existing hamlet commercial zones, the rural commercial zones. And what we just tried to establish in the official plan is that the new official plan, as is the case with the Sandwich South official plan, has created fewer commercial designations and zones for consolidation, greater flexibility, and a more uniform approach. So what we would anticipate in the zoning bylaw is similarly fewer commercial type zones. Now, one of the things to be aware of is there are some areas out in the agricultural areas that may be in rural commercial zones. The official plan has a policy that speaks to where there are existing uses that are not in conformity with the official plan. They can legally continue to exist, and they're typically put into a site-specific agricultural zone. It recognizes the rights to be there and to expand and so on. But also we've noted that the new official plan contains policy consistent with the policies of the province, which is to offer opportunities for agriculture-related commercial uses in the agricultural area by way of zoning amendments. And this was a very strong movement that was undertaken by the province to provide greater opportunities for economic activity in agricultural areas. And there's a list of criteria how one would go through that. So with that being said, again, there were no revisions being made to the new OP. We respect and appreciate the comments that were provided, but we didn't see any need for changes to the official plan. The second broad item is with respect to an outstanding issue that had been left from the public meeting, and it relates to the town-owned lands at Highway 3 and McCord Lane. And I think, Sean, if you would please, for simplicity's sake, if we were to go to Schedule B-2 of the official plan, which is attached to the report, that at least is a geographic reference that we could use, so B-2. And then just quickly, Mr. Mayor, At the public meeting, there were a number of residents who expressed opposition to the land that is owned by the town, and it's just southeast of the Station 2 Fire Hall, as proposed to go into a general commercial designation. It had been community facility, and there have been, I'll just wait to this map to come up. It just simplifies things a little bit. Thanks, Sean. So once we get this in position, right where the hand is there, and the purple rectangular piece just to the north is the fire hall and related facilities. And of course, the green piece just to the south is Old Castle Heritage Park. So the very irregular shaped property, it's roughly 10 acres, just slightly greater than 10 acres, is proposed to be commercial, general commercial. There have been significant inquiries made to the municipality about it being able to be used for commercial purposes. And so the thought was it would go into a designation as part of the official plan. Concerns were raised, and we looked at how we might be able to move forward from a policy perspective that allows the dialogue to continue about what is the preferred use for the land, but create flexibility once the official plan is adopted. So what is proposed is that the land where the hand is would be designated commercial, but in the official plan itself, under the land use designation of general commercial, there's a site-specific policy, which we use frequently. Council would have seen them quite often when we're doing amendments to the official plan for proposals and so on. And when you have a specific policy environment you want to create around a specific piece of property. And what the policy essentially says or proposes to say is that these lands could be used for community facility uses, which are a range of common institutional type uses, or they could be used for the general commercial uses. So it's given the benefit of being allowed to be used for both the red commercial designation or the purple community facility type uses. This is not to say that it's cast in stone where council will ultimately land on what will this land be used for. It creates the flexibility for that discussion to happen in the future. And once that determination is made, and it may be that all of the land is for community facility, or it may be that a portion of it is and a portion is commercial, the flexibility is there to address that issue in the future. And that was how the official plan was revised from the version that existed at the public meeting. So that is in front of council this evening. And finally, there was a slight change. We had neglected to include Old Castle Heritage Park and identify it. So you can see there that we've included that as a recreational designation to recognize that existing use. And then finally, Mr. Mayor, there's a third item, and it's with respect to Little River Boulevard. And this had been raised by Councillor Dowie some time ago. And at the time of the official of the public meeting, we were still in some discussions with our consultants, Dylan, who worked on the Transportation Master Plan. And the question centers around, and again, Sean, if we could go to schedule E-1, you'll see that there's a gap between Little River and the existing official plan for Tecumseh, which was developed and adopted in the 1980s. It had a collector road going all the way across that portion of, we'll call it former Tecumseh. Now, we are not recommending that the small segment that is missing between St. Pierre and L'Esperance be included in the official plan as it sits today. And the rationale, again, I'll just wait for the map to come up. You can just see the gap up right there. Thank you, Sean. And the reason being is fundamentally when that collector road was put into the official plan, significant portions of this area of the town had yet to develop. And it was anticipated, and I guess the objective was sound, that there would be this continuous east to west road for vehicular movement. Ultimately, we're not recommending that it be included. And there's two fundamental reasons. One, that the Tecumseh Transportation Master Plan, which has been in front of council a few years ago, did not include this short segment. And it was believed at the time that although this area has developed since the 1980s, the connection never was made through that area. And that now that we have full build out, we have not witnessed current traffic volumes or patterns that would necessitate putting that connection through. In fact, the road network is such, and we spent some time looking at this and talking to Dylan about it. The network is integrated in such a way that your east-west traffic has so many options to go either north to Riverside Drive and make the trip into the city, or there are various alternate routes that it just has not manifested in itself as creating a traffic issue at that small gap. So that's one of the reasons. And we really haven't seen deficiencies. They haven't been identified. And again, Mr. Bartnick might be able to jump in here too if there's any specific technical questions that are asked. And the second part is it's about 110 meters from St. Pierre to Les Bronze. And looking at putting Little River through, there's approximately 5 properties with 5 homes on them. Considerable public funds would be required to implement the construction. There would be considerable disruption to the neighborhood, and the net value to the transportation network, we just didn't feel that it was warranted. So that's why the official plan continues to show a bit of a disconnect right there as a collector road. So, Mr. Mayor, those are the changes that are in the document that is sitting with council, in addition to the matter that was just dealt with under a separate report. And Chad's just going to review the next steps in the process, and then we'll be all set for questions.
Thank you. So having regard to all those changes and to the background work, the discussion papers that have been prepared and the stakeholder engagement process, we believe that this new official plan before you tonight is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the County of Essex official plan, and we're recommending it for adoption. If adopted tonight, it will then be forwarded to the county planner, who I mentioned earlier has been delegated the approval authority under the Planning Act. And this is someone who we've worked very closely with throughout the development of the document in anticipation that it will facilitate a timely review and approval. Now, as part of that review and approval, there may be some modifications. And if there are modifications, we will bring those back to council for support prior to it being fully approved. With that, Mr. Mayor, we make ourselves available for any questions that council may have.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Jeffries. Just to Brian's point on Little River, a little bit of the history, and I know you had mentioned, and I'm glad you brought it up, was the additional costs, to make that connection to Les Bronze Road would be astronomical. And the reason, folks that weren't here at the time, I was here when Little River had 3 new connections put in because, as you know, you couldn't get east and west. So back in the day, that extension from Lacoste Boulevard to St. Pierre, if you look at the back end of Victoria School, that was just a clear field. And it was part of, the school itself. And it was through the Valente, Revland, and Revland. Who else was there? There were 3 partners in that. But anyway, the 3 partners themselves had developed that piece, and they just found a remnant piece of land, and then they just extended Little River to St. Pierre. Because people will always ask, well, how come it ends at St. Pierre and so forth? Because Les Bronze Road's been there for 100 years, and Little River was there in the 90s. So that's the little bit of the history. It was the Rayon family was the other partner anyway. So I just wanted to add that piece in there, and I'm glad that you mentioned the cost would have been astronomical to buy out those properties and then just to make the extension. Councilor Dowie, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. And just building on that Little River discussion, I apologize that I didn't bring this forward earlier. What is the merit of leaving that orphan piece of Little River designated as a collector road if it isn't going to intersect with another collector road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, the piece that is to the west of L'Esperance?
No, the piece between St. Pierre and Lacoste.
Can we have the map again, Sean, if you don't mind? Because I've got my bearings on.
Yeah, you can see the back
Sorry.
piece.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, I was thinking St. Pierre and L'Esperance. The thinking is that this whole segment of road ultimately, we believe, functions of, it does have a capacity as a collector. Keeping in mind that it's used not only by virtue of the connection of Wood, but St. Pierre and Riverside Drive to the north. So when you put together the volumes of St. Pierre going to Little River, thank you. Riverside Drive to the north, Wood to the south, and St. Pierre, it still has a volume that does make the connection through this entire sort of threshold of a neighborhood from St. Pierre over to Manning Road. So although it doesn't make a direct connection, it still is the sort of the terminal point for the beginning of that east-west segment. So we think it does offer a point of commencement of the collector road system, basically.
Thank you. Are there any other cases like that in the municipality?
I don't think so. I think this one was a bit unique. I mean, back in the day, when you see the cul-de-sac to the north of that piece, you know, I can't recall the exact, but I remember some comments making from council of the day, you know, to the landowners at the time, is why didn't they just push right behind the church and then right into part of Victoria School and that piece of property. And I think I would have to go back to Mr. Lassard days as the administrator of the day. And then because there's that piece that, remember, there's a road that was supposed to be, and the municipality owns that piece. I think at that particular time, we didn't want to sell that. And that kind of, I think might have stopped that part of the development, because then there wouldn't have been a little river there. It would have been all homes, because you could have put two double cul-de-sacs on one end near St. Pierre and the other one by L'Esperance around the church.
And if I could, Mr. Mayor, to the question, no, I'm looking at the map. I don't see another scenario. But it was felt, and you know, we did look through the transportation master plan on this as well, and there was just a sense that there was merit in identifying that east-west corridor of having significance, and as you know, as part of the broader local network that connects to it. But you are correct; that is one of the only, I guess, stubs that exists in that manner.
And it does take a lot of pressure off Riverside Drive.
Okay, thank you. I don't think, you know, I don't think there'll be anything different. I just, you know, want a defined network so that people know where they ought to go and what's truly a local street and what is one that is intended for others to travel on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It's more just, I just feel the need to speak to Schedule B2, the municipal lands at north of Highway 3 and south of McCord Lane. As we were all in receipt of some communications today, but I also received communications after the last public meeting, and not all residents are in agreement of those lands being a community facility. And to lock it in as a community facility, I feel it prohibits our future uses to it. And I would say that's irresponsible and unfair to the entire municipality. Having it open as general commercial makes us more transparent, to have a more viable public input, and for all of the residents to have their say for its future potential uses. We would have to have reports, studies, business plans, and again, full public input. There are vacant buildings throughout our municipality during these times that actually were underutilized before this pandemic. And a lot of residents don't want to see lands designated for another empty facility that'll be underutilized. So I feel we are being responsible by having it designated general commercial. There are two different interests for these lands from the general public, and I've heard both sides. And so I feel having it as this designation, general commercial, is far more fair and far more responsible for our future uses of those lands. Thank you.
I totally agree with your comments, Councillor Jobin. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff, and Councillor Houston.
No, thank you. I just want to, through your worship, to Councillor Jobin and also to town administration in receiving kind of the correspondence that went out. I was going to tonight certainly engage that question of, how can we look at this a little bit differently? But I really appreciate the input that Councillor Jobin just provided, indicating that certainly, at least myself, I haven't heard from those other groups or those other individuals through the town that really, would prefer a different designation. And I think, as was articulated by the CAO, to members of the food group, that we're trying to still allow for some flexibility in this. So I do see it as a bit of a compromise, if you will, something that we can make sure that we'll do our best to ensure that, we'll put the right things in place kind of for everyone. So I really appreciate that input from Councillor Job, and thank you very much for that, because I didn't see or hear from the other side, and by you articulating that certainly helps me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, I'll go to Councillor, unless you want to go directly and answer that, Councillor Jobin. If beg your indulgence there, Councillor Houston, if we can just let Councillor Jobin.
Sure, just one more thing. I mean, there are a number of different uses, not only a commercial. We could even, if the right proposal and the right opportunity comes before us, we could even divide the lands. We have Station 2 that is an outdated fire hall. We could start to project to maybe have a new build on those lands and make the old fire hall a form of a community center. But at this time, it wouldn't be fair for us without those studies and those avenues explored, just for the purpose of certain voices who want to be heard. And you're heard, you're absolutely heard. And that's why this is, you're right, Councillor Altenhoff, a fair compromise, in my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Jobin. Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'll echo Councillor Jobin's comments regarding that parcel specifically. And again, I'll echo Councillor Dowie's earlier comments, to administration. This, this document in the official plan is just so deep and encompassing of everything that we do. And, I recall, first being elected and, reading through some of the discussion papers and all of the, back history and work that has really gone into it. So, great to see the amount of public engagement that we've had on the document, because it just drives, so much of the conversation, that we have with development down the road. So, I'll thank all the residents who, did, take the time and were engaged throughout this process. And again, all of the work that administration has put into it. Great job. And, certainly look forward to, supporting and passing the document tonight.
Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you to administration, all those individuals viewing, anyone who've provided input to this, because this is certainly a community activity. Again, I won't echo or won't regurgitate what was already indicated by Councillor Dowie and Councillor Houston, but I think certainly thanks and a level of appreciation has to go out to administration, as well as all the townsfolk who certainly provide input. I see this as kind of a, if you will, a thesis or a dissertation for the town. And I know and I see the headaches that students go through in writing that up. And certainly this is something that was, being executed long before I took my position as counselor. So I want to commend everyone on their input and on their efforts on this. Thank you all. And I think it's going to be a very good, good beacon or a good light to help us move forward, as that OP official plan. So again, thank you to everyone.
All right, Deputy Mayor Becchetti.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of point off the one point that was raised tonight on the property on Highway 3. Right now, the way when Mr. First showed the map, it showed a good mixed use there, a partnership with the fire hall, the Heritage Park, the museum, and it's working well. So in the future, what we've done tonight, and I want to thank the CAO administration, they basically left that to continue to foster and grow. So right now, those parcels are all living in harmony. And in the future, depending on where the growth goes and the needs in 10, 15 years, we have those properties there based on reports that are pending, and we can pivot either way, whether it be more community-based or more general commercial. That will allow the town. And again, I go back to us being financial stewards. We have to do what's in the best interest of the town overall, and then keep our options open. And that's what we're doing tonight with that one point. And then again, you look at other agreements, other municipalities that have partnerships with local schools where you already have a footprint, you already have a building that's built, that's not used in the evening, and it's not used in the summer. And they have community use agreements in the gymnasium and meeting space. And so those are buildings that are paid by the taxpayer, and we need to maximize their use. So when the time comes, that evaluation will take place, and the reports will come before us to make those decisions. So I'm very comfortable with how it's been presented tonight, and I want to thank everyone for putting their input and providing comment.
I would like to, certainly echo Councillor Jobin's. And I think there's, in terms of community facilities, remember, we added to the fire hall. And I think Councillor Jobin made a very good point as well. We don't know 5 years from now, 10 years from now, a more modernized, depending on what growth we have there, and building a new fire hall and so forth, what that's going to bring. But I certainly agree. I think the general commercial that was there previously, I think 2 weeks ago when you presented it, Mr. Hillman and Mr. Jeffries, I think it was the proper approach, because whatever vacant lands or anything that we owned, it's owned by the taxpayer of all of Tecumseh, whether you're on Riverside Drive or on County Road 8 or Manning Road or Manning. It's all part of our own municipal structure. The one thing that certainly I will not ask you again, Mr. Hillman, about when are we going to put this plan together finally. We were here since amalgamation. It's here, but it's ironic that it's here today, in particular in 2021. It's our 100th anniversary of the birth of at least the town of Tecumseh. And here we are starting our next century under one plan. And I think that it's very appropriate that the plan is coming forward today, so that we can be on that next century of developing our wonderful community and so forth. So I want to certainly commend yourself, your team, Mr. Jeffries, Mr. DeCecco as well, and all of your team on planning, and senior administrators, all of them, whether from Public Works, the parks, to Marg as our CAO, and certainly our clerk and all of, we've got this great team that put together, I think, a marvelous plan. I'm very excited for the municipality now that there's no more confusion in terms of, this community or this hamlet or this piece here. It's all under that one big umbrella, which we've all strive for. So I know the document is intense. It's well written. It's well developed, and certainly I'm looking forward to now moving forward and getting council to support this to certainly move forward to county council for a final approval, and then we can move on and start building from a true town of Tecumseh global official plan. And I really believe that's going to be the case moving forward. So I certainly want to thank council as well for your input, and I'm sure it's been appreciated by members of administration in that, and also to the general public. Thank you for for weighing in and bringing your concerns and your advice, and I know it hasn't gone unnoticed, and regardless of how small a contribution or how big the contribution, we certainly want to extend our thanks to everyone for delivering your piece, because I think this is a document that should be owned by the 25,000 residents of the community. They own it, and it's a living document, certainly as we move forward. So congratulations to everyone. And so at this stage here, I would ask certainly to council, because there's two pieces here, so that there is a clear direction, especially on the amendment and so forth. So what is the wish of council? Do we amend as presented this evening, the amendment that's been there, or do we go back to the original delivery 2 weeks ago? The general commercial or that split on those lands? Yes, go ahead. Council, not council, but Mr. Hillman.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, not to, don't want to jump out of order here, but just to be completely clear, the report that is covering the official plan is the document that is in front of council for adoption. As it relates to the town-owned lands, it is that they would be designated commercial with a special policy that allows both community facility uses and commercial uses. That is what is being recommended to council and is in front of council. So it would be the recommendation at the front of report 2021-04. That would be the decision of council, unless there's anything different that council wants to do.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to, maybe didn't make myself clear in the explanation, but in terms of what I'm hearing tonight, there's this report here, and then it would require an amendment of this report if they wanted to just keep those designated lands as general commercial. Am I correct in saying that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So if they were exclusively to be for general commercial, it would require the OP that's in front of you tonight to be changed.
Okay, that's what
tonight is general commercial on the map with a site-specific policy allowing both general commercial uses and community facilities as of right.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jobin.
If I may just speak to that, and that's how I will receive it and support it as it is written.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then if no further questions or comments, then I'll accept an adoption resolution. And Councilor Jobin, you're prepared to move. And Deputy Mayor Becchetti, support. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Oppose, if any? That's unanimous. Congratulations, everyone.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could, sorry, I didn't want to speak to this prior to council adopting, but, and I will not, but it is appropriate.
Then what are you doing?
Well, now that you've adopted, I feel a little more comfortable thanking some people. If I could have some council just to, and I won't belabor this, but this is a major undertaking, as you've all indicated. It has come with lots of other challenges that have occurred in this municipality post-amalgamation. And I really think that it's a document that reflects the vision of the town to be a very progressive, vibrant community, and one that we can all be proud of. And, you know, quite often in planning, we are all dealing with the outcomes of what type of development's going where, and it's going to destroy our neighborhoods. Actually, planning's very much looking forward and seeing how we make our places better. And it tries to recognize that there is no commons, just one point in time where we exist. Change is constant. So this is a map for us to use. And I think it's a very useful map that will create wonderful neighborhoods and a strong community. Having said that, really, I have to say it is a team effort. And in finance, Tom and Zora, Paul and Casey, and recreation, Phil and John, and in the engineering division, if I could just thank them. Chad and Enrico did a tremendous amount of work in the planning area. So I just wanted to acknowledge those people because it's a major lift. And when Mark came on board, there's always the uncertainty of, oh, there's it's a new CAO. This could all go in a different direction. She has been very supportive and has allowed us to bring this to a conclusion. And so with all of that administrative team effort and the support of council, I'm quite happy that council has endorsed it. And we thank you for the kind words. They do not go unnoticed, and they're appreciated. So thank you. And thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Have that moment.
That's why as an administrator, I remember she's a planner.
oh, we know.
Yeah. No, it's all good. So again, to everyone, and certainly I want to thank council for your indulgence. And I know there's been a lot of back and forth over the years and so forth, but now we can turn the page and hopefully the county will do their part, and then we can move ahead. All right, we'll move on. Members of council, we do have now also from Planning and Building Services, it's our 2020 year-end report. And maybe Sean, if you want to, bring that up. And I don't know if it's Mr. Vogel going to bring this up or Mr. Hillman.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. Vogel was here at the beginning of the meeting, but I just scanned quickly and I don't see his presence. So in the absence of him interjecting, this is our 2020 year-end report. It's been a great year, I think, from a building perspective. Some very significant development has transpired. You'll see that the construction value is up by about $23 million, 41%. The number of permits, although is down slightly, you'll see when you turn over that the residential component has really had a number of unit increases, and it's largely multiple. And I think very reflective of the, the demand that's happening in the market right now. We also have a section in the report, Mr. Mayor, that just speaks to some of the training that's taken place. As you know, Michael de Blasi is our new building official. It's a year and a half now, roughly, he's been with us. And building inspectors and actually chief building officials are a very challenging area for the municipal sector. And Mr. de Blasi has been going through a very aggressive program of undertaking a number of exams, which of course you can appreciate means there's lots of studying and so on. So we just thought it'd be helpful for council to see that, staff is very diligently looking at bringing itself up to speed in all regards. And the building code is a very complex document. And so we're quite pleased with Michael's progress. So we included that in the document as well. And there's been a revenue projected for the year has turned out to be higher than the budgeted amount by about 51%. So quite pleased with that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, I mean, it doesn't go unnoticed. We know how busy they are and that. And when you look at you had mentioned a multi-res, but that's 200 plus units. So that's 200 plus, families or couples and so forth that are moving into the area, and it frees up some of our single family homes. And so we're seeing certainly a lot of activity. And it seems to be cross-sectional too, to commercial development and expansions to the industrial facilities. And I would surmise that 2021 should be a pretty active year for us as well. With that, a motion then to receive the report as presented. Councillor Houston, Councillor Altenhoff, and all in favor? Opposed, if any, that carries. Thank you. D, we'll move on. Again, it's our planning and building services 2021-06 site plan control agreement, and that's 1840 Black Acre Drive. Mr. Hillman, if you want to bring that report forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, this is a site plan approval on Black Acre Drive for 2 industrial buildings on a piece of property that actually has some additional lands available. Sean, if we just maybe go to the next map, please, if you don't mind. Thank you. And then the next one after that. There we go. And you can just see the context of how this site is developing. So this site plan approval relates to the 2 yellow buildings. One is immediately up for construction called proposed, and then there's a future industrial building. You can see they're fundamentally setting the site up for the option of severing it in the future, which is quite a smart move and really simplifies the corporate opportunities in the future. There was a minor variance that was dealt with by the Committee of Adjustment with regards to the number of access driveways on the property, and it was approved by the committee last night. So if council were to grant the site plan approval, it would be conditional on that passing through the appeal period, which is anticipated based on there were no significant comments received. So, Mr. Chair or Mr. Mayor, that's the site plan approval. Fundamentally, that's up for council approval.
All right, so everything at this stage here, I know for me to read everything, but everything is certainly up for approval. You feel comfortable that all the criteria has been met? Then site plan AO is prepared by Alio Associates Incorporated, attached here too as attachment 2A, which depicts the existing 1,560 square meter, 16,800 square foot industrial building, and 2 proposed 12,000 square foot industrial buildings, along with the respective associated on-site works on a 1.98 hectare, 4.89 acre property located at the north side of Black Acre Drive, immediately north its intersection with Roscommon Industrial Drive, also known as 1840 Black Acre Drive, be approved and subject to planning. But I think there's a comfort level there that that's been met. Moved by Councillor Houston and supported by Councillor Tonio. Any questions or comments? Having heard none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, move on to E, the Canada Healthy Communities Pilot Program of on-demand transit for Tecumseh Transit Service. And that, again, planning. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Mayor, transit is under the planning umbrella.
No, I got that. I was just looking at that. But anyway, no.
We're willing to trade it up if that's.
Planning's been busy this past 2 weeks.
Busy times for sure. And this is something actually, Mr. Mayor, that came up quite recently. So it took a little bit of quick discussion amongst ourselves, CAO, finance, and I will try to be quite brief. What is in front of council is a report that's recommending that we file an application with the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative, and it's a federal program, $31 million available across Canada. An application has to be submitted by March 9th, up to $750,000 in funding available to municipalities and other agencies. And we've looked at it, and it's related to adapting to the COVID experience that we're all having right now. And we think that it's a really nice fit for looking at on-demand transit as an option. And council will recall that when we extended the contract for First Student, our service provider for transit, we had indicated when the 2-year extension was brought to council and supported that we're really at a point where we're looking at some of our options going forward. Discussions with Windsor, Lakeshore's doing now has commenced a transit study. And so we're interested in what they're doing. And we have about 2 years to figure out, okay, how do we want to fit into this transit system with our neighbors, if possible, if reasonable. And also one of the issues we raised with council was looking at alternative service. And one is on demand. And on demand, I'm going to give the really brief synopsis. I thought the report quite nicely described it. It's a system whereby it's more interactive with the users. And it's very much designed where there is technology used or a call-in service where you call the service provider as a user and ask for a pickup at a certain time. And the system adapts to where the pickup is and where the destination is. It's very progressive. It's been used successfully in a number of communities, and you'll see that we reference Laval, Quebec, which had some very startling positive outcomes flowing from it. And I think one of the best ways to learn is on demand. A good fit for the town of Tecumseh is to actually try and do a pilot project, because we've been quite intrigued by this concept for a period of time. But unless you really, it's not unlike transit. Until you actually get in the trenches and introduce a transit system, you're not really sure how it's going to work and so on. So we feel that the program that's being put out by Canada Healthy Communities Initiative is a really timely program. It would fund the pilot project for a year and allow us to experiment with it and see how it works for the town, and then help us understand going forward beyond the 2 years, is this something that we want to continue with or otherwise? Mr. Kitsos has prepared a financial impact section to the document. And he did the best he could under the circumstances of limited information. And he's available to speak to any questions that might arise as a result of that. Bit of a rushed situation here. As I said, we do require a council resolution if we're putting in an application, and we have to have it in by March 9th. So a couple of weeks, a little less. So Mr. That's a very high level review of the.
Yeah, Mr. Hillman, I know Innisville is also utilizing a program like that. And I know I've had conversations with Mayor Dolan, and they're actually quite pleased with it. And town of Belleville has gone into it, and they use on demand on off-peak times, and they found tremendous savings in doing that. And what I wanted to add is I'm participating in the Good Roads conference this week, and I know on Monday that there's a speaker, and hopefully now we can bring it to you. But there's a gentleman that's there talking about the various modes of transportation, from transit to active transportation and the whole bit. And one of the areas they talked about was starting with even scheduled routes with autonomous bus driving by itself, up to on-demand transit system, which is a far more efficient. And his take was basically reducing the carbon footprint of having a regular route going in certain areas. So it's very fitting that this is coming and that this is being brought here. And so I was listening with interest in terms of the different pathways that people are now looking at in additional modes of transportation within the municipality. So I just want to bring that to your attention, but I certainly want to have access to his session. It's about 45 minutes or an hour session, and it was quite interesting on the different modes of transportation.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, thank you. And I neglected to say that that's one of the beauties of the on-demand system. Off-peak, it gives you tremendous flexibility, provide greater experience for the users who are using it at that time. And in fairness, I should have said, Chad Jeffrey has actually done a lot of research on this and has been we've been talking about it a lot, and it's very suitable for COVID times. It's suitable for a system like ours, and there's a carbon footprint element that is quite intriguing to the municipality. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I mean, this is certainly exciting, right? And I'm happy to support this and really see where we can go with our system. And again, as Councillor Jobin and I sit on the intermunicipal committee with Lakeshore, what opportunities lend to cross border. And I know there's always been talk of extending deeper into Ward 4 over to Vista, right? So where can we really reach more of our residents through this type of a system? So certainly looking to see this move through its life cycle and what the end product will look like. But it's certainly exciting, and looking forward to see it come to fruition.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, when I read the report, to be honest with you, I was very excited, and you may chuckle and giggle, but I see this really as an awesome research opportunity, and kind of being a bit of a researcher. Your Worship, you mentioned autonomous, and as well as this concept of on demand, and perhaps the utopia of it all is a hybrid version of both of those entities. I don't know, but I certainly hope that the information we'll get will benefit ourselves. The other thing which was articulated, and I really wanted to raise it, I think this is going to have a very good impact on, no pun intended, that carbon footprint impact. Good opportunity there. So I'm very happy to see that we're taking a bit of initiative to look at these things, and just encourage everyone being in this pilot study, please look at the data quite closely, because we may find some very interesting things that we never thought of, and other municipalities throughout Ontario or the world potentially could appreciate this. So thank you very much, and I'm certainly happy to support such an endeavor. Thank you.
Councillor Tonio.
I'll just be brief. I just want to say I love the idea in all aspects, how it affects our carbon footprint, our vehicle use, our service to our community, and the cost savings. So great job, administration, on finding this, and then hopefully we're successful in the application for the grant. Thank you, guys, and good job.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to administration, just so I can visualize the concept a bit more, it's that the bus would continue to go in a circuit, but it would just deviate on that circuit at the appropriate time to get to that pickup point, or does it just go straight to a request as it comes in? So just was hoping to get some clarity on that.
Mr. Jeffries.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can take that question. Yeah, I had a number of questions as well, Councillor Dowie, when we first started looking into this. And the more I looked into it, the more I believe that this is the right fit for our municipality. The on-demand type of service works really well in suburban locations that feed more dense urban locations that have fixed routes that are used more frequently. And the job of the on-demand service is to pick people up at the times they want to be picked up and brought to those systems, but also throughout the municipality. And we'll learn more about it through the pilot project if it's approved, because a component of that is to be educated about the system and what it could offer for the town. There are different ways to deliver it, but in peak hours it might continue along with a fixed route and serve that fixed route as it always has. But in off hours, the algorithms that it uses will take the requests for rides and develop routing for the bus, so that's going only to those bus stops that are in demand. And the beauty of it is that the municipality along with the service provider, can develop the thresholds within the system so that you can define where that bus and under what circumstances that bus will go. So, for example, if you want to keep the bus during COVID, you want to keep the bus to a certain limit, it will only allow that limit to be picked up and to ride on the bus. So it's a good way to control capacity during COVID, and it's a great way to get people to go where they need to go quicker and with more certainty. So I believe it's a really good approach to try, and we're going to learn more about it as we move along together.
Yep, go ahead, Councilor Dowie.
Oh, thank you, Worship. Thank you, Chad. So just trying to visualize it. So if we get a succession of users, so one wants to go to Tecumseh Mall, another one wants to go to the grocery store, and then the third one wants to go to Tecumseh Mall, what would the bus do? Would it skip over the one going to the grocery store, pick up the two going to Tecumseh Mall, or would it go to Tecumseh Mall, then go back, then go to the grocery store, go back, and then to Tecumseh Mall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't tell you with certainty what the bus will do because there's a complicated algorithm that works that out for us, but it could very well do just what you described. But it takes in all sorts of data and factors in so many different considerations in providing the optimal route for everyone that has made that request. And again, we've had a few sessions with service providers, and that's what I've gleaned from it, and some of the research that I've done on it. But I don't fully understand it, but I understand it well enough to know that it works well under conditions such as ours.
Yeah,
Where it has been implemented, it has increased ridership and reduced fuel usage.
Works on an app, Councilor Dowie, and works on your time. You call in when you want your ride and where you want to be, and the bus will pick you up at your designated area and so forth. We could have Mayor Dolan have a little conversation with, or even their transportation person from Innisville or Belleville, to have that conversation. But it's all done by an app and direct calls to the driver. Chad?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just one more thing. Research has shown that about 90% of people have smartphones. So the vast majority of the requests will be done through an app. But in those cases where someone doesn't have access to a smartphone, they can call in and let the person answering at the call-in center know where they want to be and at what time they need to be there. And that will get typed into the computer system, and the algorithm will tell them what time to be at a certain stop. So that's it. That's essentially how it works.
Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. So I think Chad just answered my question. So I just want to confirm my understanding. So you still walk out to the bus stop. It doesn't go to your house. You walk out to the bus stop, and bus takes you to somewhere that is on your fixed route, or that's normally on the fixed route. So this isn't Uber. This is the bus just skipping over the spots that aren't in demand at that time of the day.
Correct.
Okay.
But Innisville does have Uber as well, and so they've got on-demand bus and Uber at different times. So they've got quite a menage of transportation, but it's because of the density of the municipality, how spread out it is, and the further, and that's when I know when it was at AMO, I went to a conference there when they talked about the Belleville experiment, is the downtown core was like a schedule, just like Mr. Jeffries was alluding to. But as they were getting out to the periphery of the town, it was on demand. So if you wanted to be at, say, station 10B or stop 10B is, in the rural area of the community, you wanted to be there picked up at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. You had to be at that stop at 9 o'clock, but the bus would be there at 9 o'clock to pick you up.
All right. Thank you very much.
It's quite unique, 21st century. All right, so on the pilot program, members of council, is that we're looking to receive obviously the report that was here, but also that a one-year pilot project for an on-demand transit service be endorsed as a candidate project for funding through the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative. And further, that the treasurer be authorized to sign any required documents necessary to complete the application to the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative. Councillor Allenhoff move, support by Councillor Houston. On the report, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried unanimous. Public Works, Environmental Services, Drinking Water Quality Management System, Operational Plan version 11. I don't know if Mr. Bartnick or Mr. Dupuy is gonna, if Mr. Dupuy is here, it means it's a good report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to thank Brad Dupuy, our Manager of Water and Wastewater, for putting together the report and the operational plan, as well as Nicole Bradley. She's our DWQMS officer, so she had a big role to play in this as well. Just like to give a brief overview, and I guess if there's any questions afterwards, Brad's here to make me look really good. So
Again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So before you tonight is reports that we're asking to be endorsed and committed to for our drinking water quality management system operational plan version 11. The original operational plan was first endorsed and committed to back in 2008. The plan provides an understanding of the drinking water system, the roles and responsibilities of the owner and the operational staff, procedures to operate and maintain the drinking water system, and a commitment and endorsement by the owner to provide safe drinking water to our consumers. We do regular updates to the operational plan on an annual basis, which is legislated by the province. And the changes to version 11 were essentially due to the 2021 Public Works and Environmental Services Capital Works projects. That report was brought to council in December. An up-to-date essential services contact list, the current water main material and length of the town's water distribution system, as well as staffing and operational changes. So updates to the operational plan are necessary for continuous improvement of the town's quality management system. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bartnick. Any questions or comments to both Mr. Bartnick or Mr. Dupuy? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, yeah, my thanks to Public Works on this revision. Just as a suggestion, you know, it's a very lengthy document, similar to, you know, other documents that we've noted tonight, but just as a suggestion, certainly when we make edits to it or changes to it, perhaps to kind of ease the burden of the review of the entire full document, if we could maybe just track changes or implement some of the, you know, the kind of the word processing technology that exists, just so that it's easy for, you know, the reviewers, counselors, you know, anyone to kind of look at it and hone in on any changes. You know, just it gives us, you know, a quicker sight to what we need to look at. So if something like that could be considered, it'd be appreciated. Thank you. But otherwise, you know, the efforts are greatly appreciated, and thank you.
Good point, Councillor Altenhoff. Glad you brought it up. And Councillor Jobin.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, to either Mr. Dupuy or Mr. Bartnick, since we're on the topic of our water servicing and treatment policies. After the Walkerton inquiry and the Drinking Water Act was implemented because of the Walkerton matter, it changed our servicing to our rural parties and how we maintain flow to our rural servicing. Just looking for an update, basically, because there's been discussions about the water tank in Old Castle area and where we are with our rural servicing, which, you know, some of our residents still don't have municipal waters.
Thank you, through you, your worship. And to Councillor Jobin's question, I'll start with perhaps the easy one, the proposed elevated water tank in Old Castle. So administration brought forward an update to the wastewater master plan in early 2020. And that included a revised servicing strategy from the previous master plan, which was dated 2008. And so essentially, the change in strategy is now proposing a water tower in Old Castle, sized enough to provide service to the Old Castle area, as well as fire flows, and have a transmission main installed all the way down to Maidstone to provide service and better pressure and flows in that community as well. It is currently identified in our 5-year plan to propose to start that process and the design of it in 2022. So there is quite a lengthy process with the design and with the site selection, that it may be a 2-year design site selection process with construction to commence following that. So we're still a few years out. And I guess, sorry, Councillor Jobin, the second question that you had with respect to servicing of the rural areas. So we do have the master plan that sets forth some of the major trunks and transmission lines. It does not necessarily get into detailing how the entire area is serviced by the local water mains. And I believe the town does have a policy similar to our sanitary and our wastewater, where it is a petition based, and I believe it's a full cost recovery as well. So the town is not fully covered with respect to water service. There are a few gaps and a number of properties without water service. But with the proposed water tower, there will be an improved level of service within the Old Castle area, as well as the Maidstone area as well.
Okay, thank you. And just second to that, is there, you know, when we have in our life cycle, we have a line item to save for a future development of whether it may be, you know, in 10 years, you know, we had a 15-year timeline for the addition to our town hall. Can we not implement something along the lines of connectivity to municipal water as a line item for future connectivity? Some type of a goal or a timeline to, you know, I understand that Lakeshore is fully connected to municipal water and they have 0 people on well water still or private wells. I'm just curious, you know, because it comes up every couple of years and there's always new information out there and new ideas. I'm just wondering if that, if there's any new discussion on how to move forward, or is it all based upon, you know, the act and all the other things? The tower and
Well, it's also petition driven as well, as you know, and it's like everybody, you know, life cycling or even is for right now in terms of existing infrastructure to be replaced. But all of that infrastructure was paid for by each individual that has access to water, sewers, and into their homes. And so, you know, I don't know what the you know, what the you know, that type of solution would be, but the reality is it is a policy that's been established in San Luis South many years ago, and it's again petition driven, and then it's full cost recovery.
Sorry, your excuse me, your worship. Just to add to that as well. So there's the capital component, which is the petition, as the mayor did allude to, but there's also the usage of the water, and because of the regulations and trying to keep the chlorine residuals up, and the limited number of people that are actually making connections and using the water, what we find is that we would have to dump with auto flushers more water than we would actually use in order to keep the chlorine residuals up and the water quality within provincial legislation.
Right. Just through experiencing it over the years, I've come to that conclusion. On our street, for instance, before regulations changed, it stops at a certain point on our road. And now for it to continue, for the amount of usage required, both of the dairy barns on the street would have to hook up for adequate usage. And those two facilities don't want to incur a massive water bill. They've never had to, so why would they? So that is what is restricting the usage. And same with on other streets. If they only have 2 or 3 homes, there isn't the usage. And then when there is the dumping of the hydrants at the end, M&R comes out and says, you are now dumping chemically treated water into our natural waterways. So now we are connecting where we can. And once we do develop enough funds in our water reserves, we do a connection somewhere out in the rural community. So I guess this is more just touching base and just hashing it out again to make sure we're still, that's still the same direction we're in, and that's still how we got to motor through usage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're looking for a motion to receive, Madam Clerk. Councillor Jobin and Councillor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Dupuy and Mr. Bartnick. He made you look good again. Got bylaws, lots of bylaws. All right, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first bylaw we have this evening is bylaw number 10, being a bylaw to adopt the new official plan as amended and reported on earlier this evening. Bylaw number 2021-11 authorizes the signing of an agreement with the province in regards to the OPP building lease. And finally, we have bylaw number 12, which authorizes the signing of the servicing agreement, also reported on earlier this evening, between the town of Lakeshore and the owners of 454 Brighton Road. We're respectfully asking for first and second readings to these bylaws, and if appropriate, third and final.
All right, 2 readings, members of council. Councillor Houston, move and support. Councillor Altenhoff, 2 readings, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And 3 readings, Madam Clerk's in order now. And Councillors Houston, Councillor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. All right. Unfinished business. Okay, new business. Deputy Mayor Becchetti.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items. One, if we can ask maybe our CEO, Ms. Evans, if you could follow up with the police board. There was a request for speed radar on North Talbot along Weston Park, and just they were wondering for timeline. So if they can say, in the next month or so, just to make sure that that radar gun is in the queue. I know I had spoken to the sergeant, but not sure of timelines. The other one is more with policy priorities. Maybe we can discuss it at that point. As you know, there's a big push with, especially in the pandemic, buy local. And, is there something as a town that we can help with? Maybe, I remember, Gary, you would remember the mayor when we, a while ago, there was a big push to buy national, buy Canadian. And I don't know if there was some kind of motion made, but as a municipality, is there any way we could help our nation? Because you look at what's going on in the world with the COVID and the vaccines, every country is taking care of themselves. And as a lower tier municipality, what is it that we can do in terms of purchasing policy to help out? And again, I use an example, we have garments, we buy clothing allowance in terms of certain workforce. Are we able to buy Canadian? Why do we need to go overseas? And so these are little things that we can enact. It might be a little bit more rather than looking at the cheapest and doing that. So I just bring that up because it was brought up to my attention to see if the town is doing anything in that regards. And I'm not sure, Gary, if at AMO if there's any push for that. But the buy local should also be buy national. And again, maybe with something we can discuss at policy priorities, if there's little items that we can do that, just to kind of,
Well,
be in that
there's-
spirit.
There's, I know it's been discussed there, but depending on the value of what we're looking at procurement, if it's, construction and so forth, we are bound by the World Trade Organization, where even with Europe, CETA, in terms of there's certain things that the province and federal government have to open up. And I know we've seen what happened in the United States and so forth under Trump, and he just basically circumvented the World Trade Organization and so forth. But then they ended up having to pay. I mean, locally, I think for me, on a personal basis, I do buy Canadian, and I always make a point that, unless there is no way possible, and so forth, but we have to be careful in that regards. But I maybe the best is to maybe have admin just on some of the trade issues and so forth. But I know construction and many of those, depending on the value, we're governed under certain trade agreements. But locally, I mean, we should be supporting our local groceries and farmers and when I buy my milk, not just because of the Jobin farm, but I do believe that Canadians produce the best milk in the world. And so I look at that little blue label and I make sure that I buy my milk is Canadian. And our Canadian cows are better looking than the American cows. So, but I don't know what the answer is there, but it's try to encourage folks to shop locally, shop in our mom and pop areas and then help our farmers in the general area. I think that's important.
Yeah, and I agree, Gary. There may be larger items, and I agree. There's trade rules and organizations that we have to abide by those rules. However, the low hanging fruit that I'm thinking that just in terms of the spirit of cooperation is, we do a lot of public relations. We buy pens that say the town of Tecumseh. If there's a Canadian company versus overseas, we can endeavor, maybe use the word endeavor, to purchase Canadian furniture. We were doing town hall renovations. There may be, a company that's Canadian versus American. Prices are similar. We endeavor to, purchase Canadian. So if there's small items like that, I think, that's where I think the discussion is. If we can, it'd be nice to be able to support that. So thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Margaret, and then Councillor Jobin.
Thank you. Through the mayor to council, laudable, absolutely. I think that in terms of policies, the purchasing policy is the one that would apply. I believe finance has that on the radar for review at some point in time. I'm not sure exactly when. Tom can maybe chime in. But those are the kinds of considerations that we'd have to take into account: the free trade agreements, all of that standard has to be accounted for within the policy document. But we understand the spirit of your comments and can certainly keep that in mind when that document is up for review. And on the other matter, if I could ask you to maybe just to send me a note, Deputy Mayor, on where on North Talbot and times if you have it. If not, and then we'll work with Public Works for the speed radar. And I'm sure that the trailer is kind of in high demand, but we'll fit it into the schedule we typically do the monitoring and then feed the information to the OPP to make better use of resources for officers' time. And Phil, you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. So we have made note of it. I caught the location there. I think it was North Talbot Road, right in front of Weston Park. We'll put that in the queue. So I think the town usually deploys the speed radar trailers and the black cats that are installed on the hydro poles. We don't usually roll those out until spring, just because they do work with solar and the battery life is diminished during the colder weather, as well as the longevity with the sun staying out a little bit longer. So we will roll those out probably in the spring, and we usually have a running list of locations, and that one I think is going to be first on our list for this year. So.
Right. And Mr. Mayor, is remiss, and maybe perhaps Mr. Kitsos wanted to comment on the purchasing policy before I turned it over to Phil there.
Yeah, and just to Deputy Mayor's point too on the radar, maybe just to pass this on to maybe our OPP traffic group, maybe they could do a little spot duty in that area.
I certainly I can pass that along. Yeah. Tom, sorry if the mayor, with the mayor's indulgence, if you wanted to comment on the purchasing policy, please.
Thank you, and through the mayor. So the comments made were correct in that we are, as a corporation, governed by the trade agreements. So there's CETA and CFTA. So we do have to abide by those agreements. There are certain dollar thresholds that are scrutinized. As a public corporation, of course, it's we have to keep in mind the best interests of our ratepayers to secure the best value for their tax dollars. So that's something that we also have to maximize or optimize and take into consideration. With respect to the policy, we are updating our policy. There are some areas that require updating because of recent trade agreement updates. But with speaking with respect to buying local, that's something that we would not really be able to include that type of language in our purchasing policy.
Okay.
Really is up to the individual consumers to make those types of decisions.
Okay. Anything further? Yes, Councilor Jobin, sorry.
Not under this topic, under my own new business. Is that where we are?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Well, first, of course, I would like to thank our Public Works Department for their deliverance of our snow removal service. There is a couple of different social media postings on the Tecumseh Friends of Tecumseh group where they acknowledged the fantastic service as well. So I just wanted to do a shout out for them. And as you were speaking earlier of, local and farmers, today actually is Canada's Agricultural Day. It started in 2016. It was launched to celebrate farmers in the agricultural industry. So I just want to make you aware of that and just to express my pride and gratitude to our own local area farmers and all of their hard work and commitment to our community. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. I've got a couple of items. One, I just wanted to share what I saw that come out from the provincial government. And that was what appears to be the abolition of the local planning appeals tribunal, consolidation with all the other environmental and land tribunals. So quite interesting news. I don't think I've seen something come through yet, but I just wanted to share that. Quite interesting to see that concept be brought forward. I also wanted to just mention an issue that has been raised with me, and it has to do with the enforcement of school areas. Definitely not a new issue in the least. For better or for worse, whatever parking controls we have posted are being reported to me as not being adhered to at bell times. And so, my recommendation has been to residents to continue to call the OPP and advise of this. But if there is a better option, certainly if administration might have any direction on this, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Would it be worthwhile to Councillor Dowie's, even a conversation with the school boards to let them know so that, they could send notice from school, that the parking issue?
Through the mayor to council, we can try. In my past experience, the schools are not friendly to those overtures. They don't believe that to be their part of their responsibility. But I can certainly raise it with the OPP and just see where we're at. Are there, and once again, not right now, but perhaps if Councillor Dowie has any specific schools or locations, times of day, all of that is helpful to the OPP to allocate resources.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Dowie.
Yeah, and yeah, really, it's the three schools on St. Thomas, St. Margaret Duville, A.V. Graham, and St. Pius. And it's the bell times are consistently, it appears as if they're within a couple of minutes of one another. And so the congestion that gets created, combined with the drop off and pickup of the students getting in between the parked cars, creates the ongoing hazards.
It's a real safety issue.
Certainly not a new issue at all. This has been going on for years, and it's in every municipality. The only solution appears to be enforcement of the parking bylaws that have already been set out. And so hence I guess we need the OPP to go at bell times and ticket. The bottom line to ensure that this is adhered to.
Okay. Any further new business at this stage? The only thing I'd ask from Mr. Bartnick, two things. Number one, thank you for, again, it was alluded to, and to our great, snow removal crews that have done a fantastic job as usual. Luckily, we're having a slow enough melt. We're not having rain, but I notice a lot of catch basins are covered. And just that if there are some time where Public Works can, I don't know, through their Bobcat or through their backhoe, just to try to clear some of those catch basins.
Yes, to Mr. Mayor, we do have a few staff members out clearing some of the catch basins. I think they're focused on more of the low-lying areas, but we'll definitely do a sweep when we do our road patrols to see if we can identify more.
Yeah, but I must say, it's nice to see all the roads the way they are, and I think it's because of great snow removal and great job by the, thank God I don't own a snowmobile, because I wouldn't like you guys. You're too good at cleaning the snow, but that's good. Any further new businesses or new business? Then our next meeting, members of council, Tuesday, March 9th. We have a 5:45 public council meeting, and that's on the Curtis Drain. 6:15, a public meeting on the Dawson Drain, and our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. So if there's no further business at this stage here, a confirmatory bylaw on it, we didn't do that, did we? No.
No.
Okay, well, I need a confirmatory bylaw on our proceedings this evening. Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Tonio, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Now adjournment certainly is in order. Councillor Tonio and Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Once again, thank you, members of council, for your meeting this evening, and administration. Certainly, again, I can't say enough. I'm so happy to see the official plan moving on to the county. Yes, give yourselves everybody a pat in the back. This is worthwhile. So thank you. And until we meet again on March the 9th, stay safe, and we'll sign off. Stay safe.